Bienvenido al presentaje de lenguaje en español.
Our project looks at the similarities and differences between the English language and the Spanish language.
Contrastive analysis is a process of systematically showing differences between the phonology, morphology, and syntax of two languages. The beautiful Spanish language is classified as a Romance language. It is the official language of 20 countries or more. More than 360 million people speak Spanish worldwide. The history of Spanish originated from the Iberian Peninsula, which is located on the southwest part of Europe, which we currently know as Spain. In 218 BC, the Roman Empire saw how valuable the peninsula was and conquered it, making Latin the official language. The Celtiberians later took over the northwestern part of Spain, and Vulgar Latin was formed. Vulgar Latin used words and phrases that varied from traditional Latin. From this language, many dialects evolved, one being Castilian Spanish. Castilian Spanish spread throughout the south and central parts of Spain. Around 719 BC, the Moors conquered Spain and spread Arabic culture and language. More than 4,000 Spanish words derived from Arabic. Spanish first appeared in writing in the 11th century in notes and glosses in Latin religious texts known as the Glosses Emilienses. The writing of Spanish continues with King Alfonso X and his scholars. They began translating science, literature, laws, and official documents into Castilian Spanish. King Alfonso X even wrote an encyclopedia in Spanish. By the 15th and 16th century, a dictionary was created. There are 6 major regions where Spanish is spoken: Mexico and Central America, Andean, Rio Plantanes, Caribbean, Iberian, and Equatorial Guinea. What's most fascinating about these regions is the fact that the Spanish language varies. Andean Spanish is one of the most clear to understand and learn. It is spoken by people from Colombia and Ecuador. Caribbean Spanish is known to be a little more difficult to understand. It is spoken by people from Panama and parts of the Caribbean islands. Equatorial Guinea Spanish is spoken by people on the west coast of Africa. This Spanish dialect is similar to the Castilian Spanish. The Spanish alphabet comes from the Latin alphabet. There are 27 letters with the addition of the letter N. Therefore, the two alphabets are distinguished by one letter in Spanish. The letters K and W are only used in Spanish words that were loaned from other languages. The Spanish alphabet is mostly phonemic, meaning that it is easy to pronounce letters and words based on the phonemic spelling. Spanish has the same 5 vowels as English. However, Spanish vowels are marked with an acute access to stressed syllables. The vowels A, E, and O are pronounced with a stronger tone, while I and E are pronounced with a softer tone. The letters H, J, R, and Y may cause trouble for Spanish-speaking students because they are pronounced differently from the English letters. A big difference between the Spanish and English language is that Spanish uses question marks and exclamation points that are inverted at the beginning of sentences and clauses. Tildes and accents are used to stress syllables such as the le in teléfono and the n in año. The first letters in a sentence and pronouns are capitalized just like English. In Spanish, however, things such as weekdays, months, and even suffixes are not capitalized. When pluralizing nouns that end in a vowel, you simply add s, such as the word libro, you would pluralize it to libros and add a s. If a noun ends in a consonant, you add es, such as mes, which is Spanish for months. you would change it to meses with the es ending. The suffix tion is used in English to make verbs a noun. For example, evaporating would be evaporation. In Spanish, the suffix used to make nouns is cion. For example, contaminante, which is contaminating in English, would be pronounced contaminación, which is the Spanish pluralization for the noun.
While comparing the phonology of languages, linguistics asks 3 questions. Does the native language have a phonetically similar phoneme? Are the variants of the phonemes similar in both languages? And are the phonemes and their variants similarly distributed? A specific problem concerns the spelling of English words with double letters. Spanish only has 3 double letter combinations, CC, LL, and RR. English, in comparison, has 5 times as many. Spanish learners often reduce English double letters to a single one, or they overcompensate by doubling a letter unnecessarily. For example, hopping for the present particle of hope. The differences in the R phonemes predict that it might be harder to distinguish the R sounds going from English to Spanish. Spanish words frequently end with stress vowels. However, in English, stress vowels are followed by consonants or one of the 3 glides. The Y as in boy, the W as in cow, and the H as in he. The Spanish language is pronounced phonetically. However, beware of the trilled R, which is somewhat complex to reproduce. The letters B and V are almost indistinguishable, and then the letter H in Spanish is silent. Here you can see that the Spanish language does not have the following sounds. So the vowel digraphs, consonant blends, initial sounds, final sounds, the endings ed, the endings s, endings without a vowel, suffixes and prefixes, and the contrastions. Syntax is the study of how words are combined to create phrases and clauses in the sentences of the language, including the word order. If the subject is not expressed, it is incorporated or suggested by the verb ending. The order of the subject and verb is reversed in an interrogative sentence. The Spanish language allows sentences to be flexible and still be grammatically correct. Since Spanish is a Latin-based language, emergent bilinguals who speak Spanish can draw on their native language to determine the meaning of those many Latin roots. Often there is a clear connection between the Latin root and the word in Spanish. For example, escribe, which is to write, comes from the Latin root scribe, or to write. Arbol, or tree, comes from the Latin root arbor, tree. And the word pesa, to walk, comes from the Latin root pass, or pace, or step. This knowledge would help them understand English words. There are 5 simple rules to build basic Spanish sentences. The first one is that every Spanish sentence needs a subject and a verb. The second rule is that adjectives come after nouns in Spanish sentences. This is where there can be the most mistakes. If we want to say long hair, we would say pelo largo, which literally means hair long. Adjectives also must agree. If the noun is plural, then the adjective needs to be plural too. The third rule is adverbs function in Spanish like they do in English. The adverbs are used to describe the verb just like in English. In order to make an adverb, you add mente to the end of the adjective, which is similar to the addition of ly in English. Adverbs do not convey the gender, and there are a few adverbs that don't follow the mente rule, such as bueno and malo.